Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Random Redshirt podcast. I am one of the hosts, Zach, and the other host is Chris. What's up, buddy?
Hello, everybody. Hello, my dear friend Zach. I hope you're well, everyone. I hope you're well around the world and perhaps in Antarctica as well, if they're listening, which would be awesome if they are. Zach, you had a big day today, an awesome, incredible day. I'm so happy for you. It was really great. Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I took my son to a local convention, um, and none other than the iconic Michael Ironside was there. And so I got to meet him, and he I signed a photo for me, and signed a photo for James, and we chatted for a little while. It was awesome. It was so wonderful. If you're watching or listening to this podcast and you've been listening and watching long enough, you know my affinity for Michael Ironside. You know I've brought him up many times on this show. In my love for his portrayal of so many iconic characters, Chris, across some unbelievably massive franchises in science fiction and otherwise.
Absolutely. Scanners, Total Recall. I think Total Recall is on one of my top 10, like ever,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, it's like incredible. Starship Troopers, which is awesome.
Top Gun,
Yeah.
first
Top
Top
Gun.
Gun. Oop.
Yeah.
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 Terminator Salvation.
Hmm.
He has been in some major franchise. He was in the next Karate Kid. I know, not a lot of people are big fans of the next Karate Kid, the one with Hilary Swank in it. It didn't have the same magic that the first three movies had, but still a fun watch. And he is the main guy. He is the John Kreese of the next Karate Kid movie.
Yeah.
So he's been a part of some incredible franchises, and on top of that, he is a highly in demand voice actor. He was a major voice in the Splinter
Oh,
Cell franchise for the video games. He's done
yeah.
just it's unbelievable the amount of work he's done. Um, and it's been some really good stuff. So it was a true joy to finally meet him. Really nice guy. And yeah, it was awesome, Chris. Also met
Yeah.
Casper Van Dien, who played Rico in Starship Troopers, which was awesome. He was great. Met Jake Busey, son of Gary Busey, who was in Starship Troopers, and we met Katie Sackhoff again. So that was awesome too.
Wow, that was awesome.
Yeah, it
Yeah, it's
was a good
amazing.
time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you had like a couple weeks of some really cool like conventions to go to. The Star Trek convention and the another Comic-Con convention. It's
Yeah.
just fantastic.
Yes, it was busy. And then I think the end of the month, I'm taking my son to a local sports card show. So yeah, it's been a busy month, and then doing shift work right now at work, which is brutal. I'm exhausted, but hey, we get to talk about fun stuff. So remember, I told you a few weeks ago, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be starting shift work, but come hell or high water, I'm still gonna do this. Even if I'm a zombie, and I'm a little bit of a zombie, but that's okay because we still get to talk about things we love and enjoy and take a break from reality for a little while and share our thoughts with all of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's okay. You can be a zombie. I'll get you some barbecue chicken and it'll be all good. It'll be yummy.
Somehow I knew you were going there.
Yeah.
Somehow I knew it. Yep, that's right. That's right. If you don't know that reference, folks, that means you have not watched our episode review of the Shuttle to Conforee, Strange New Worlds episode with director Dan Liu, who directed the episode, and his directorial commentary is incredible on that episode. Highly recommend you go watch that or listen to that on our YouTube channel or your favorite podcast platform because he offers a lot of amazing insight that you may not know and probably wouldn't know if you didn't listen to that or watch it. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. But, Chris, we are continuing along with episode number 6 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds entitled The Sehlat Who Ate Its Tail. A very bizarre name for an episode, if I do say so myself, but it does make sense once you hear the Vulcan tale that Spock mentions later on in the episode.
Yeah, it does make sense. And the Sehlat, I might my memory might be off, but I want to say that Spock's one of Spock's childhood pets was a Sehlat. if I am not mistaken, right?
We wrote a trivia question about that very thing.
We did.
We did.
That's right.
So that was very that's a deep cut, as the kids call it these
Mm,
days. A deep cut right there, right? To go down that road. I mean that I don't even remember what episode that was mentioned in, but it was some of some minor tiny little reference in some episode of the original series that most people aren't going to remember, right?
yeah. Yeah, but it's excellent. I think maybe in Enterprise they talk about Silots as well.
Yeah, you might
Sepult.
be right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we should have a pet Selot on a starship, and perhaps there is, like Captain Archer was able to bring his pet dog. So
Yeah.
for the Vulcan captain, perhaps they could have like a pet Selok. And you know, the Klingons, they have their pets like on their Klingon cruisers as well.
That's true. They have targs.
Yeah.
Uh it's funny you mention that because the captain of the Farragut in this episode is Vulcan.
Is
So
Vulcan, yeah.
it kind of makes sense actually. Wouldn't that have been funny though if there was a Selot on that ship in like the brief moments you see the captain actually not injured and unconscious?
Yeah. I think that would have been great. Just
That would have
yeah.
been, yeah, that would have been
Yeah.
really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this episode was written by David Reed and Bill Wolkoff and directed by Valerie Weiss, who's directed several episodes of Strange New Worlds now. And they've all been fantastic, all the episodes that she's directed. So this is an interesting episode. I know we definitely both have our thoughts because this is another Kirk-centric episode. Um, if my memory serves me correctly, Chris, I know because we've had a couple of Kirk episodes, one in season one, one in season two, I think. I want to say this was the heaviest, like the most heavy Kirk episode we've gotten as far as the amount we see him on screen. I know the episode Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow with him and La'an, where they go back in time. There's a lot of Kirk in that too. But I'm trying to think. This might be the most Kirk centric we've had thus far.
I would want to. There's a lot of Kirk in this episode, and yes, I would want to go back and take a look at those other Kirk episodes. Um, the one that was the season finale of season one, there was a lot of Kirk in there. Not as much as this episode, but there was a good amount. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'd be curious to go back and look and see how much other Kirkness there was.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true because Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow did have a lot because obviously there was a
Mhm.
central story arc and that unfortunate moment between him and Lon in the past. And we won't talk about that though. But anyways, yeah, so we do get a lot of Kirk in this episode. It's very heavy Kirk centric. And what we see here is a side of Kirk we're not used to seeing because this is still a younger version of the character compared to what we know and love from the original series forward. So let's jump into this, Chris, because there's a lot to unpack here, a lot to discuss, some amazing writing that took place in this episode. And I think knowing us, we're probably going to get into some level of a deep dive here of the character of Kirk as we go through this.
It opens up with his personal log, I believe, right? And he's talking about his experience on the Farragut. He's talking about how he's processing his relationship with the captain, and wanting to have a little bit more adventure and exploration, and just he's internally complaining, like thinking, "Hey, why are we being so cautious? Like, why are we always playing it by the book?" He wants to get out there and get his hands dirty, so to speak, so to quote, like as he says. And so he finds himself questioning the orders of his captain, like again and again.
They say be careful what you wish for, and that was not
Mhm.
is no more true in this episode because Kirk, you kind of mentioned he's bored. He's looking for some action. He thinks he could do it better. And then the proverbial crap hits the fan and it's on him.
Yeah, it is. And that was a interesting like exchange when he's on the bridge and they're, um, they're doing a scan of the planet or just checking out the planet, and he suggests to the captain like, "Hey, can we just go?" boots on the ground. Can we beam on? Can we see what everything's about? And which is fine. And she's like, oh, I don't think it's a good idea right now because it's got some seismic instability on the planet. Um, and he's disappointed, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. But if she had let him go down or a crew go down, it would have been a very, very different outcome for Kirk than what we would. I mean, it would have been a massive shocker because they would have, in essence, killed him off, and that just wouldn't have flown. So
Yeah. 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 But like a big, yeah, at the beginning, so it's not just si- a little seismic instability. There is a
no,
big, right? There's a big collision with the planet, and you don't quite know what it's from yet. We learn later on, but the Farragut crew is just thrown all about. They're incapacitated. The captain's incapacitated. Like Kirk comes to you and he realizes, oh, okay, captain is incapacitated, so therefore he's got to help out with the immediate situation. And he does. Yeah.
yeah. When you saw on the view screen, when you saw the planet starting to like break apart and explode upward, did
Yeah.
that remind you of the scene when they do the Death Star test in Rogue One,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they go to shoot the Jeddah city, and they realize that it was too powerful of a shot, and then the whole planet ends up breaking apart, and the planet's slowly like breaking up into space. And I mean that I saw that shot, and it reminded me very much of that scene from Rogue One.
Yeah, agree. That does.
It's like Death Star esque.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking about this as well a little bit more. I mean, we'll get into it a little bit more, but this ship, this device that kind of creates havoc on this planet, this huge impact, huge explosion is so powerful, right? So
Yeah,
I'm trying to make sense of this. Like I know, like I have some like questions, and it just doesn't quite fit like into my mind quite right.
yeah.
Like how something that powerful like is right now. Mm.
No, I mean you're
Yeah.
100% right. In this particular time period, for there to be a ship with the power and capability to make a planet explode, uh, to me seems a little far-fetched. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
trying to think. I know, and you mentioned this before, although it doesn't, you don't see it on screen, but you mentioned the original series episode, The Doomsday Machine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? But in that episode, if I remember correctly, that thing swallows like ships and stuff, right? It
Yeah.
swallows things in. It doesn't like shoot something out and blow planets up. As far as I don't remember there being any reference in the episode about it destroying planets, right?
Yeah, as far as I can remember, right. Right.
Yeah.
I'm
So
just like,
yeah, I think that's a good point you made about going back and watching the Doomsday Machine just to kind of see something that may be kind of similar esque, right?
yeah.
But we don't see in Star Trek ships that have capabilities to break planets apart. Uh, in the movies, we don't like to talk about too much the JJ movies. In the first movie, the Romulan mining ship drills into the planet and drops that little red material, the red matter or whatever it is, into the planet and destroys Vulcan. That's the only thing that I can think of off the top of my head where we look at planets and stuff exploding
Yeah.
via some ship. I mean, there was, in Star Trek 6, right? You have the Klingon moon Praxis that there's some kind of I know accident or some kind of
Explosion, yeah,
explosion and
mining
yeah,
accident. Yeah.
and it blows like three-quarters of the planet off or most of the planet apart in chunks. But I don't remember there being any tech or ship that just goes around and sucks the resources out of a planet and destroys it like this.
Yeah. Yeah. And then yeah, in the JJ Star Trek, it was I think they were creating some sort of micro black hole or black hole,
Yes. Yep.
right? So that was involved there. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, so even then the planet wasn't blowing apart as being sucked into this
Mhm.
little black hole, right? But
Yeah.
that's not canon, so we don't talk about it. But no, but yeah, I've struggled since we had our talk last yesterday on the phone. I have struggled with this idea of there being at this particular period of time a species that has the ability to do this. I
Yeah.
know in the episode Year of Hell, Part 1 and 2 in Voyager, they erase civilizations off of planets by messing with the timeline. But again, they don't blow the planets up.
Yeah. Yeah. So we can think about more. I mean, because we'll
Yeah.
connect this more when we get to the end, like when we reveal like who the aliens, well, aliens, like who, yeah, who the antagonists
Who the
were,
creatures are. Yeah.
who the
Yeah. Yeah.
creatures are. Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So the rescue party that beamed on the Farragut, uh, this was something I immediately noticed. Oh, and like when the opening few seconds of this episode when we went to um when we heard Kirk's like personal log. Like I said to I paused it. I actually paused it. And I go, I think Zach's gonna have issues with this episode. So, um, the rescue party that comes on. So Enterprise comes in. They're gonna help out the Farragut. It is Spock, Leon, Scotty. I think Scotty's on there, right? And Nurse Chapel.
Yes, Scotty
Yeah,
is on there. Yep.
and Uhura, right? Yeah, I
Yeah.
believe Uhura.
I mean,
So
other than La'an, pretty much everybody in that crew is going to be a part of Kirk's crew in the future on the Enterprise,
yeah,
right?
yeah, that's
Everybody
right.
else is a classic TOS character minus La'an.
Yeah. And so, um, which is really cool, which is really cool. This rescue party comes on. One of the things I immediately noticed, and it was a little bit distracting for me in a bit, because they beam on, and then there's you see Leon look at Kirk because like she looks at Kirk. This is not the version of Kirk that was in Tomorrow, 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 but like she had um like a relationship with Kirk, the other version of Kirk. But immediately it was like you've got this party that is on the bridge now, and all these kind of triangular relationships that were involved from previous episodes. So, which I get, but it was actually like for some reason that was a little bit distracting for me. And go like, oh, you've got all this dynamic now that's there, and so Leon and Kirk, Leon and Spock, Chapel and Spock, and just that's all there. So.
It's like a Star Trek reality show. You know what I mean? Like we have all. Now, here's the thing, though. I just like you try to block out the whole Troy and Worf little fling. I
Hmm.
block out the La'an and Kirk thing, and I'm
There you
trying to
go.
block out the La'an and Spock thing. And yes, I'm just trying to block it out, Chris.
Yeah.
I'm
All
just
good.
trying to block it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Some things you got to block out. Just delete
Yeah,
it. Just delete it.
like the Star Wars, the Disney Star Wars trilogy.
Yeah.
Um, you just got to block from your mind. It doesn't exist, right? It's not there. It's not out. It's not out in the ether, especially Last Jedi. But anyways, um, yeah, you're right though. It does add a dynamic, and I saw the little glance
Yeah.
that Lon and Kirk gave each other, and I'm just like, stay away, Kirk. Stay far, far away. I'd rather Lon be with Spock than Kirk, but we know
Mm.
that that's not going to happen because Lon is not a original series character, and we've had that conversation already. So I won't go down that road of my nervousness for what may happen to her by the end of the series, whether they just she goes away or they kill her or what. But hopefully not the latter.
Yeah.
Um, so yes, it does. It adds a very unique dynamic to the crew.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Yeah. So the rescue party comes on, they're helping, they're being very, very, very helpful. I think Leon beams off with some data that they had gathered, which was good. The amount of data that the Farragut was able to collect from this
Yeah, the sensor
entity,
data,
I
I
guess.
think.
Yeah, the sensor
Yeah.
data. So that was cool. I thought that was a neat scene to go. Um, and then you see the entity come on the ship. And I thought it was a really visually great and cool sequence to see the Enterprise come in and try and attack or defend against that ship, and the ship kind of throw out its tentacles and bring it in. And that when I saw that, that's when I immediately thought of the Doomsday episode from TOS.
Oh, yeah,
Was that? Yeah,
I
yeah.
agree. I always like it in Star Trek when you have a ship that comes to the rescue and
Hmm.
immediately begins firing. One of my favorite, actually, probably my favorite moment in the Star Trek franchise where you see that type of thing happen is in First Contact, right? Where the Enterprise has been away, they've been told to stay away, patrol the neutral zone. Picard disobeys orders. They warp to Earth,
Yeah.
and they immediately jump in. And as the Defiance getting pounded, and Worf is like, prepare for running speed, and the helmsman's like, "There's another ship coming in. It's the Enterprise." And Kirk, I keep saying Kirk. Worf's all excited, and then he's like, "Perhaps today is a good day to die." And then the Enterprise zips on screen and
Yeah.
cuts in front of the Borg cube, shooting, and then starts shooting back. That to me is maybe the best type of one of those scenes in the franchise.
Yeah. I agree. That was really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So Enterprise gets sucked into this gigantic behemoth of a thing,
yeah,
right? And they're stuck there for now. They're not sure what to do. So I like when they cut to Pike and number one, like talking about like, oh, what are we gonna do now? Because they're trapped and they're trying to figure out how they're trapped, how they're gonna get out. Um, and they're seeing all these different other scavenged ships that are within this behemoth there.
yeah.
So yeah.
Including a Klingon one too, right? There's an old
Yeah.
Klingon battle cruiser in there that's, I believe, if it's not in pieces, it's pretty close to being in pieces.
Hmm. Yeah. And Leon like has a name for this thing, like that has been maybe rumored amongst these different human colonies that were out there, but the Annihilator, the Destroyer of Worlds. And I liked that. That
Yeah.
was, very menacing, ominous tone right there.
And is it Uhura or somebody else that mentions another name called the monster past the edge of the map? Um, I
Oh,
think that's another one that was mentioned.
yeah.
And in fact, somebody even mentions that whatever this mysterious thing is, they don't know, right? That even the Klingons fear it. And because it had destroyed a planet, it's like, okay, something serious is going on here. This is some type of super advanced species or creature, because how else would it have this technology and be able to do what it does? When you first saw like the image of the front of the ship in this
Yeah.
episode, did you have any thought that the ship itself might be the creature, vice having a species that you know, flies that ship? It looked to me like a creature, like some spaceborne creature that was running around. And I was thinking, okay, it's a space living, faring creature, and it's sucking up stuff out of planets and ships because it's using that energy to grow and to live. And so I originally thought it was like I said, some creature, not an actual ship itself.
Yeah, because it looked alive with a big mouth and kind of face on
Yeah.
it. And
Yep.
so also had some other things flash in my mind, like from Transformers, there's the Unicron, there's the character of Unicron that eats planets. So I thought,
Ah,
oh
okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that flashed through my mind. And there's Galactus from Fantastic, well,
Yeah.
Marvel and the Fantastic Four universe. That flashes through my mind too. Of that, yes, you get the sense that hey, maybe that behemoth, that thing is like alive.
That's what I thought, because of the
Yeah.
tentacles and everything too, right?
Hmm.
So you're thinking if
Yeah.
this has got to be a creature.
Yeah.
Um, And I mean, they never explained it. It was left vague, maybe on purpose. But you could even make an argument, like if for some reason, you know, they ever brought these things back, which they can't now because of the way the episode ends, right? But if it were something where this thing had appeared in a couple of episodes, you could even make an argument that it's one of those ships that's kind of alive, like it's a ship, but it's also alive, because we've seen that in science fiction before. So that could have been a thing, but no, I think it's just a menacing looking ship. Why it was made to look like a creature, maybe it was for intimidation purposes or to scare, you know, other species or whatever, but it's certainly an interesting choice.
Yeah, there's an episode in Voyager, and I don't remember if it was what it was, if it was a ship or if it was like some kind of gaseous like cloud, but it would lure ships into it so that it could devour it, but and it would lure ships into it by like making uh the crew um either sleep or think they were lure them into like a sense of like um complacency,
Oh, okay.
and it would just lure them in. And so um but I have to I'd need to go back and watch that with Voyager, but it was something like that. So yeah, I thought it was totally either a creature or this device like the Doomsday Machine, and it turns out to be a ship in the end. But that wasn't my first thought, just like you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the ship was very menacing looking.
Hmm.
And it's really interesting because the Enterprise is grabbed a hold of by the ship and brought in,
Yeah.
right? And then they're stuck in there. They can't get away. They can't do anything. And then you have the Farragut that's, you know, pretty close to dead in the water, floating around out in space, right? And so you get this kind of two story arcs, this two storylines. One in the Enterprise, they're trying to figure out how to get out of there. They can't communicate with the Farragut or anything like that. And then the other storyline is the Farragut itself, and with Kirk, and Kirk trying to overcome some confidence issues and some command and leadership issues now that he's been given this opportunity to be in charge with the captain being incapacitated.
Yeah. And we have some throwbacks or Easter eggs, not really Easter eggs, but there's, you see the 3D chess that's in there. And Kirk go to that and then spend a lot of time looking at the chessboard uh and some time by himself. The He does get really frozen here
Mm.
and not really sure what to do. And there's quite a bit of friction, between like he being there and Spock and Scotty and Nurse Chapel and Uhura. Um, because they're trying to throw out options, and he's not really like liking it, right? He doesn't like any of those different options.
I remember the scene, and it's very telling of where he's at in his mind in this moment because they're like you said, they're giving the options, right? And
Yeah,
he says, I don't want any options. I don't want any of that. I need time to think, and I can't do that here or with all this. I need a quiet place or something like that, right? That's he goes into I think it's must be the captain's, you know,
yeah,
ready room or conference room or something like that, right? And that's where he's become focused on the chessboard, which is to me a telling sign that A, he's in over his head right now, and B, that he needed time to escape reality and focus on something that is less stressful, less severe than what is the current situation going on. So it's he really shrinks back. And it reminds me of the episode in Voyager, actually. I just watched it not that long ago, where Janeway, they go into that void where it's all complete pitch black and there's no stars out or anything like that, and it's just people are on edge and they look out into the void, the darkness, and there's nothing. It's just complete nothingness, and it causes anxiety and stress. But Janeway uh, relinquishes back to her um, quarters, and she's there for quite a while because she's blaming herself for them being trapped in that situation.
hmm,
It kind of reminded me of that, where he kind of uh, sunk back and slithered out in a way, for lack of better terms, into the ready room or whatever room it was, in
yeah.
order to hide from the situation.
And was that after he had already, um, was that after they had already gone warp for quite a bit to get ahead of that behemoth ship, and then they lost warp power? I feel like it was,
Mm,
maybe I have to look back because he convinces, he wants to get ahead of the ship, right? And then he tells Scotty, I want warp power, and Scotty's like, well, you got to be really careful because everything's gonna like overload and the fair gets like really fragile. And but he says, I'm betting on us. Let's do it. And so um
I think
does
that's
that
this is before that
before that? Hmm.
because he doesn't even have the ability. make a decision of any kind, right? Because he even says, I think it's Spock when Spock comes in, he says something to the effect of like, "I'm stuck," or "I don't know what to do. I'm lost," or
Mm.
something along those lines. I don't remember the exact phrasing of that,
Yeah.
but that conversation that Spock has, I think, for for someone like Spock who has never been a captain and everything, Spock really, I think we see in this episode a little bit of mentorship on Spock's part
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
Kirk, right? Which wouldn't be the isn't certainly isn't going to be the last time. We know Spock consistently um, will give advice to Kirk in the original series. And matter of
Hmm.
fact, Chris, from the episode, the Wedding Bell Blues episode, I finally went back and watched What Little Girls Are Made Of
Oh,
to
good.
see
Yeah.
to see the Roger Corby in this and compare and
Yeah.
contrast to the Roger Corby we've seen so far in Strange New Worlds. Now, the Roger Corby turns out the end of What Little Girls Are Made Of is himself a machine.
Yeah.
And he ends up, incinerating himself and then the female, android that he has created as well. But yeah, I just was trying to compare and contrast. Like, okay, well, that Corby wasn't the real Corby. He was an android. He was a android or a replicant, for lack of better terms, as well.
Hmm.
If we're going to quote
Yeah.
some Blade Runner here, so that was interesting. But throughout TOS, we know, and in the movies, we know that Spock consistently advises and tries to mentor Kirk in certain situations.
Hmm. Yeah. It does. Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, I think I'm I find myself mixed like throughout this episode on the portrayal of Kirk. Um, and I can't quite put my finger on it, like on why. But I do. And
Well, let me ask you this question,
yeah.
Chris, since you mentioned that. Is that because they're showing a side or sides of Kirk that maybe we didn't think or you didn't think would be a thing with him because he's always been this guy with very confident, very self-driven, self-determined and everything, and now we see moments like this where he's more vulnerable. He's become susceptible to second guessing himself, to freezing under pressure, to basically not he hasn't grown into the Kirk that we know. Has that played a role in it at all, or is it something else?
That didn't quite play a role, but that's a great like point. But that didn't quite play a role because I was um, Kirk's indecision here and Kirk's vulnerability here. I kept going back to William Shatner and Kirk's kind of vulnerability and his indecision in Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan,
Mm.
and made the motion pictures because he is really um, you see this part of him that like is fragile and he gets called out like in Star Trek II Wrath of Khan, because they say you've never experienced stuff like this, and he's like, yeah, I haven't. So he's really vulnerable, like in Star Trek II. I've always felt. Um, so here I was surprised maybe to see Kirk complaining about his captain as much as he does, in his personal
Okay.
log. That I felt like, oh, that was like right there, and then he's complaining about that. Like, oh, okay, interesting.
Minus the mutiny part, was he pulling a Burnham? But I mean, seriously though, right? Because Burnham second guesses the captain in the pilot episode of
Yeah.
Discovery severely. Now, Kirk doesn't go to the lengths that Burnham does, but you know what I mean? Like this idea of they're on the bridge and I wouldn't say he's not challenging the captain's authority, but he's kind of urging her to basically try to do it his way. Like he
Hmm.
thinks he has a better way of doing it, right? There's
Hmm.
that for somewhat of a cocky, arrogant, very self-confident Kirk who thinks he can do it better, right? Until he's given the opportunity to do that in a really dramatic, intense, harrowing scenario, and he freezes. So, do you think it's kind of like that, where he kind of exuded some Michael Burnham there?
Maybe a little bit like that, right?
Okay.
Yeah, maybe a little bit like that because he's always been lauded. and celebrated as like this great like officer, right?
Yeah.
That can really handle himself like under pressure. I mean, it totally makes sense that they want to explore this different side of Kirk, of like him being um a little bit arrogant, and then him having this experience where he freezes, and um and then exploring like all of that, and then what kind of brings them out of that frozen situation. So I understand it. I think I think also maybe part of it is my personal bias towards um seeing another actor as Kirk a
Uh,
little bit, and like going, because I really like William Shatner as Kirk,
well,
doing
I
that too.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, of course. Yes.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna play the opposite here a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, I've shared my thoughts and my feelings previously on other episodes of our podcast when we've talked about Strange New Worlds and the fact I didn't like that they brought Kirk in so quickly into the show because this is supposed to be about Pike and his crew, not
Yeah.
Kirk. We have Kirk. We've seen Kirk a lot, obviously, with the original series and the movies and so forth. So I have my issues with how quickly and how often they brought Kirk in. What I will say with this episode is I actually liked the fact that we see a side of Kirk that we really haven't seen much of before, if at all, really. I mean, like you said, we've come to know Kirk to be and present himself a certain way. However, you would think that Kirk as a character would have to go through experiences and learn and grow to grow into becoming that captain who becomes the captain of the Enterprise, right? Like, yes, he has that self-confidence and somewhat arrogance to him. And yes, he flew through the academy. He has this drive, right? This determination to be the youngest captain and be the youngest first officer and all these things. But by doing this, and I think based off the conversation him and Pike have at the end of the episode, I like that they're showing this because what it shows is like, oh, okay, Kirk had to go through something like this and overcome something like this in order to grow and become the character we know moving
Hmm.
forward. Um, because I mean, every captain on every Star Trek series that we've seen thus far has had an episode or episodes that pushes them and that shows that hey, they're only human, they make mistakes, or so forth, and it shows their some level of vulnerability. And I think that's kind of what's done here with this younger version of Kirk. I personally kind of like seeing a little bit of a different side because you know hope you would imagine then that he does what Pike says at the end, which is he takes this lesson and allows that to carry him on moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
And in fact,
Interesting.
there's a quote that Pike says at the end of the episode, Chris, that I wrote down here. It says, "The next time you're in the chair, you'll remember we are often not that different than our enemy, and hopefully that'll carry you on, moving forward." That the other part of it I didn't write down, but something along those lines, right? And maybe that's the element to this that he is then able to take this scenario and say, okay, knowing what I know now and having seen myself respond in this way, I know how to respond in the future. I know how to carry myself in the future and do X, Y, and Z to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Hmm. Yeah, we'll see how it continues to play out with Kirk in these future episodes.
Yeah. I
Oh,
loved so the EV suits that they had in this episode
yeah.
where Lon and Pike are going through this ship and the air is toxic or something, and they're trying to find for lack of a better term, that umbilical thing that's been shot into the ship and everything, and they need to shut it down and get it to retract so they can get out of there. Those the costume designer for this
Hmm.
series has been epic. It's been amazing. They've done such an amazing job with the costumes, like reimagining the TOS look, and then these EV suits were really something cool.
Yeah, they really look great. I love their away team suits. I love their
Yeah.
EV suits. And so
The lights on the shoulders and
yeah, they were great. And them being boarded, and having to defend off those creatures, uh, was a great like action sequence. They did that great. And so, um, I think one of them perished. A red shirt perished in there, right?
yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Chris, we are seeing more of an evolution into the random red shirt that dies on the away mission in Star Trek being integrated in more and more into Strange
Hmm.
New Worlds.
Yeah,
It would
yeah, it
make
does.
sense given apparently this era of Star Trek, this on the timeline is not the time period you want to be a red shirt.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You know what I liked, what was kind of cute was as much of the Pelia that we saw in this
Oh yeah.
episode. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and her coming out and saying, "Oh, it's a great thing that I lived through the 1980s." And then this whole uh this whole part of them finding she going to her quarters and getting all the telephones. And then Dr. Mbenga, I love his comment when they're in her quarters and he goes, "This is exactly what I thought your quarters would look like." Something like that. That was great.
Yeah, that was really, really good. I'm glad you brought that scene up. The whole thing where she's sifting through, finding all these old telephones that maybe some of the younger Star Trek fans go, "What the heck is that?" They've never seen that before, right? And so you have the all these telephones. I think she even pulls out an Atari at one point,
Yes.
and I'm
Yes.
thinking to myself, she lives. Her quarters look like a thrift store or like some type of retro store where you go in to buy like an antique shop is what I was looking for. Because she
Yeah.
does run an antique shop in the episode Tomorrow and Tomorrow
Yes.
and Tomorrow. Isn't the one they time travel and she's in the antique shop?
Yeah, that's right.
And
Yeah.
so her quarters look like the antique shop that she ran in Toronto in the 2000 in the 21st century.
Yeah, that was great. And she makes a comment about the Atari. I think something about it being 8-bit, but it was like
Yeah.
so much fun. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that was great.
Yeah, that was interesting. I have found it very fascinating how they're able to take things like this and integrate them into Star Trek. Like, what other Star Trek series has taken these old phones from like the 1980s and stuff and integrated them onto the Enterprise or onto a starship or something? Now, the way in which they did it seemed a little bit strange and probably far fetched in my mind, but it was cute. It was funny.
Ah,
And Pelia is certainly a comedic character. She has her serious scenes, but she certainly adds a lot of lighthearted moments to the show. And I've really enjoyed her character. I think Carol Kane has been an excellent cast for this particular um, character, and it just goes along with so many other characters she's played in her career.
yeah,
So yeah, I've really enjoyed the lighthearted moments she's brought.
yeah, yeah, that's been good. It was lighthearted and it was corny. So that was that
Very
was
corny,
fun.
but I think corny in a good way, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah, it
mean,
was corny
just
in a
that,
good way.
yeah, this idea of, oh, I lived through the 80s, and so forth. And you're right. That line of Dr. Mbenga's was hysterical.
Yeah.
Really was.
Yeah, so they are able, I mean they are eventually able to get out of this behemoth like scavenger like ship. But a great like firefight like with those creatures. You don't know who these creatures are at this point, and these creatures like are super tough.
Yeah.
And they're shooting these phasers at these creatures and they're not able to do anything. The suits are just absorbing all of the phaser blasts. So I did like that like a lot.
Yeah. Okay. So when you saw these creatures in their suits, did it remind you at all of what was his name? The creatures from Galaxy Quest when they board
Oh,
the
yeah.
NSEA protector and they have like this
Yeah.
very like organic looking reptilian looking feel to them. Now
Hmm.
their faces are showing and the creatures on Strange New Worlds aren't, but they're whatever they are, their EV suits or their tech or their armor, whatever it uh, is obviously very advanced, but looks very organic. It looks very similar to their ship in that regard. It almost makes me wonder, like, do they have some type of organic technology in the same way that Voyager had the bio
Oh,
gel
yeah.
packs? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like
Yeah, I agree.
yeah. So I wonder if there was any sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Inspiration from Galaxy Quest or some of these other things that the costume
Hmm.
designer and everything had for putting these things together. And it's clear that these creatures have very highly advanced technology, not just because they seem to be able to just blow up worlds and take the resources, but I mean, they're very strong, they're very powerful. I think when they're shot, they have some kind of shield, almost like Borg-like shield that
Yeah,
prevented them from being damaged. I mean, it was very
something that absorbs
crazy.
the phaser energy.
Yeah.
Now that we're talking, this just came to my mind. Now that we're talking about these creatures in their suits, and we know who they are, like at the end, if they're just to say who they are because they're humans. We learn that they're humans at the end.
Yeah.
Um, Now, but this just came to my mind when we were thinking about their suits. The modern astronaut suits. You know how they have the helmet and bulky like this. This is where I want to look at the picture of how they were in this episode of Strange New Worlds because in my mind I find it like kind of similar. Like those suits kind of look like astronaut like suits. So like this, they evolved. They're kind of like big and clunky and bulky like that with the big helmet like around the head. That's what that's kind of like what they are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's true. That's true.
yeah,
Maybe they evolved that because that's what they
yeah.
would know. And we learn from Pelia that she was on Earth when this happened, that there was a group of 21st century scientists who were concerned about long term climate damage to the planet, which, of course, they're now taking a real life hot button topic that has very strong opinions on both sides of the topic, and they're taking that and putting it in here, and she's saying, yeah, they were concerned about long term climate damage, so they decided to send their best and brightest into the stars in hopes of finding another, other worlds for humanity to live on. This would not be the first time we've seen Star Trek take an episode and do that, where humans go out into deep space searching for a new place to colonize and live. And so this is before warp drive was created. This is before first contact with the Vulcans. So they think that, the chances are low that this is actually going to work, but they're hoping it does, right? And that very much has a similar feeling to Interstellar, right? Where
Yeah,
they go out into
yeah,
space and they're
yeah.
looking to colonize a new planet because the Earth is getting kind of inhospitable and so forth. Kind of reminded me a little bit of that.
Hmm. Yeah, I could totally understand that. Uh, so, but just to go back, and the Enterprise is able to escape this ship. Um, Spock and Kirk like have a very good conversation. 'Cause this is where the title comes from. Like Spock is talking about the Sehlat that bit his own
Ate its tail,
tail,
yeah.
ate its tail, right? And that helps Kirk come up with the idea that they do.
Yep.
Essentially, this is a very, very true to Kirk form, like strategy that he does because he's baiting the enemy, right? So he loves to do that. He baits the enemy, and they think that the Farragut is something that needs to be salvaged. It's got that particular uh, element that they're looking for, and so that's when he's able to get them into the trap.
Yeah, and I like the metaphor that Spock uses because then it's Pike who uses the dog chasing the car, right? Isn't he the one that uses that metaphor?
Or Kirk, one of them. Yeah, you're right.
Or no,
That that
no, you're right. It's Kirk. You're right. It's Kirk. Kirk
yeah,
talks. I think he said his mother tells him that,
yeah.
right? It's like the dog chasing the car, and then once the dog finally gets the car, it's not what it seems, right? Or it's not. It's the idea of there's more excitement in the chase than actually getting the thing.
Hmm.
And so I thought that was also really well written there too.
Yeah. Yeah, because just like we talked about earlier, I mean, that's the metaphor for Kirk chasing the captain's chair. That's what he's been chasing like his whole life, and that's what he wants. And in this episode, you see him always, he doesn't quite take the seat, but he's looking at the seat, he's thinking about it. And then when he eventually does take the captain's seat, he sits in, kind of feels it out, and he crosses his leg just like Kirk does when he's in the captain's chair. So there's a lot of that, like it in this episode of him looking at it, thinking about it. Yeah.
So throughout Strange New Worlds so far, I've been thinking about this because we've had more Kirk than I would have preferred, and it's nothing
Hmm.
against Paul Wesley. It's just that this is Pike's ship, and this story should be about Pike and his crew, even though a lot of the crew is going to be Kirk's crew. But do you feel? Because I think I do. Do you feel as though Strange New Worlds is showing that Pike certainly has a major role in helping Kirk become the leader and the captain that we know he becomes, like through mentorship and guidance and everything else. Do you have any feelings on that?
Oh, that's interesting. I think, okay, particularly let's look at this, the conversation between Pike and Kirk near the end of this episode, where Pike comes in, and they're having a great episode. I think Pike actually says to Kirk, "Oh, you made the right decision." And they have discussion. We'll talk about this more in a bit, but the discussion about decisions, about empathy, about living with your decisions. I think Pike wants to impart um, his knowledge and a little bit of his style um, upon Kirk. I I'm not sure how much Kirk actually takes that, because Pike and Kirk are so different, right? Pike is very collaborative. He wants like recommendations from his crew. Like you see, you know, you see episodes where Pike and his crew are at the conference table, and he's soliciting input similar to like how Picard would solicit input. He's getting kind of different opinions from his command team. Um, Kirk, like Kirk's very much like he loves to be in the action. He loves to uh decide, right? He loves to be the one to decide, and um he always wants to be uh right. Kirk's very much kind of like that, right? He wants to be the one to be in there and execute the action. So I I think it's setting up where you could have this transfer and mentorship between Pike and Kirk. Um, and we still have a ways to see in Strange New Worlds on like how this version of Kirk actually is. And I'm really thinking about, the William Shatner kind of version of Kirk that we're really familiar with.
Yeah.
But it remains to be seen. I think it's possible, but Kirk as a character has been someone that, hey, he's always kind of done his own path and gone there and wants to be the one making decisions, and whatever course of action it is, he likes to be the one that has thought about that course of action. Right. So um those are some of my thoughts. I know kind of like went in a few different places there. But what are you feeling? You think in Strange New Worlds it's setting up that Pike is kind of a mentor for Kirk?
Yeah, I think so a little bit. I mean, the end, one of the end scenes here, if it's not the last scene, it's one of the last scenes that
Mm-hmm.
between Pike and Kirk. Uh, because Pike's been a captain. He is a captain, right? Kirk is not a captain yet. He may have been acting temporarily, but he was the first officer before that and had been moving up to working towards that. He has not sat in the chair, so to speak. And so Pike, and we've already seen this through the first 2.5 seasons now of Strange New Worlds, just over 2.5 seasons, where Pike has been in some really tough spots, some really bad situations, and some really tough scenarios. And so Pike understands the job. He understands the burden and the weight of the job. And so I think it makes sense for Pike to kind of give back and begin to mentor Kirk in that way. as Kirk is beginning to grow and so forth. I don't know. Maybe Pike sees a little bit of himself in Kirk.
Hmm.
Um, not maybe not a ton because I mean they are very different people. They lead very differently, but maybe there's some of that. But in general, like I said, I think that Pike looks at Kirk and maybe sees someone who just needs a little bit of guidance and some mentorship. There's a line there. He does say, Pike says to Kirk, he says, the big decisions, they seem so simple when someone else has to live with the consequences.
Hmm.
That is an amazingly well written line
Yeah.
because it's true, right? We see at the beginning Kirk questioning and even his log talking about how he would constantly question the captain's decisions, whether it was out, openly or whether it was in his mind, thinking he had a better way of doing it. And then he got to the position where he had to make those decisions, and it was really, really hard.
Yeah.
But it was easier for him to be in the other position where he wasn't the captain because he didn't have to actually make the big choices. He didn't have to live with the consequences. So that's a really powerful line. And another line Pike says that I thought was great too was he says the choices you make in that chair, they are yours to make, and what comes after that is yours to live with. Some decisions you will regret for the rest of your life, but you still have to make them.
Hmm.
And so, even though Pike tells Kirk that he thinks that he made the right choice in this scenario, Kirk's are now going to have to live with those decisions that he has killed basically 7,000 human beings. And
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Yeah, when Captain Pike was delivering that message to Kirk, that was some of the most fantastic kind of delivery I've seen. So when Captain Pike is talking to him, he was, at least this is how I interpreted it, how I saw it. I felt he was very emotional. Like he looked like uh he was on the to me he looked like he was on the verge of tears when he was talking to
Yeah,
to Kirk at that moment, because these were for Pike like very, very kind of uh important and meaningful lessons that he was imparting, like, to Kirk,
and
right?
that's where I think that mentorship comes in, right?
Hmm.
And that I think that will eventually, not eventually, I think it's helping to shape Kirk in a way that will prepare him for the big chair, right? Um, Pike mentions to Kirk too. He says, having empathy for your adversary is part of the job. He said, empathy isn't this. This is maybe my favorite line from the whole episode, where he says, empathy isn't conditional. It's either given or it isn't. So he's helping to set up Kirk and he's helping to teach Kirk lessons about what it means to be in command, what it means to have the burdens of sitting in that chair, because Kirk doesn't know. Maybe he didn't know before, but I think maybe he knows now, having been in the position to have to make those choices. And I think this is really helping shape who Kirk will grow into. Just my own personal opinion.
I think that well, they are different, right? The Paul Wesley Kirk, of course, is different than the William Shatner Kirk, but I
Right.
think that the Strange New Worlds version of Kirk is going to be very, very different. Um, Now, Strange New Worlds, when they were talking about empathy, when Kirk was talking about um, when they destroyed the ship here, he said, I didn't have any empathy, right? He says that to Pike. He goes, he wanted to win. That's his thing, right? He wants to win. He didn't have any empathy.
Yeah.
He was just uh, until after. Um, so so having like this happen now, like, will of course like affect Kirk. I think back to the William Shatner version of Kirk because um in Star Trek 6, the Undiscovered Country, right? So Kirk's kind of attitude towards any enemy, whether it was Klingon or Romulan, was very much like, hey, you're the enemy. Kirk had this huge bias, like, to get over. He couldn't, right? He's like, no, these Klingons, I don't like them. They killed my son. He was just always about needing to defeat the enemy. So this will be a different version, a different take. Not that the William Shatner version of Kirk was ruthless. He wasn't like ruthless,
Right. Yeah, yeah,
but I
yeah.
think like it was a kind of different take on empathy. But the whole idea of empathy being explored here in this episode, I think is a wonderful idea to explore. And I wish it was kind of a little bit more explored here, but with Pike and Kirk and the idea of empathy, um, and maybe a little bit differently because I couldn't get past the this scene between them is perfect in itself, and I wish it could be separated from the rest of the episode because I couldn't get past the idea of like what set up this scene. Oh, it was kind of the death of 7,000 like humans,
Yeah.
and so Kirk's, you know, they need to escape. They needed to save the Enterprise. Okay, they needed to kind of neutralize this big threat that this behemoth, and like, and then here's the reveal. Here's the reveal. Oh, by the way, it was like humans. And so I couldn't like connect the dots there. This is where I had like a lot of like internal kind of things going, okay, did that like how does that make sense in my mind? Like somehow they weren't able to connect or communicate or talk with each other at all. No one was able to see that, hey, this is like human and human. So that's where I had trouble with that.
Well, my question though, Chris, is how would you know it's human until the up until that scene where the face mask of this helmet or whatever is ripped off the suit? How would they know? I mean, I had no thought whatsoever that they would be humans in this, right? I was just thinking they were some ruthless creatures. They were like the oh, why am I forgetting the name of them? The hunters from Voyager, right? They're
Oh yeah,
just
yeah. Those
yeah,
guys.
I
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
yeah Herosian. There we go. Gosh,
Yeah,
the
Haroon.
Herosian.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the Herosian type, like ruthless killers, just hunters and stuff. And so I had no idea. It was very shocking surprise to me that it was human beings, right? And so I'm like, well, how are they going to explain this one? Like, why are this
Hmm.
ship? The thing I had a hard time getting past was the advanced technology. So you're telling me that these humans went out in what the early mid 21st century, before World War III, before warp drive, before the Vulcans and all this. They sent them out. Something happened, something bad, and Pike even references something to the effect of, well, whatever happened to them to make them turn this way and become this way, right? So something horrific, something bad had to have happened for them to turn into this if they were supposed to be the best and the brightest, right? Or over generations, something changed. Uh, I have a hard time getting around the fact that in that little short period of time, they developed technology this advanced, so much more advanced than all of humanity working together post World War III and developing. And it seems really hard to believe that, right? It just doesn't seem plausible to me.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I felt that I had a sense they were going to be human when one of the creatures was down on the Enterprise and they were looking for them and there's like red blood like on the ship as well and I was like, "Okay, they're
Okay.
going to go like figure out like what it is." And then as soon as as soon as the big ship exploded and then I think it who was it? Was it Kirk that said, "Oh, scan, are there any life forms?" And then Spock said, "Oh, 7,000 life forms." I thought, "Oh, okay. And that's people." So
Mm.
that was my sense. I was like, "Oh, it's going to be people." Um, but I completely agree with you. Like this advanced civilization that was out there, and then in terms of if they had all of that technology, right? Then there was no way for them. Why would they behave that way? Behave that destructively to other like human colonists and human ship.
Why wouldn't they go home? Why wouldn't they go back to Earth? They have this
Yeah,
technology. Why not go
yeah.
back? And I mean, this is supposed to be the best and the brightest, right? So you're thinking, okay, maybe that's the reason that they were able to develop technology because it was the best and the brightest. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, but in that short period of time, they developed the ability to blow up worlds and eat ships, and it just that seems very strange to me. I just don't see that being. super plausible. But why not go home and share the technology and go back and see like, hey, what's happened to humanity? Like where are things at? I mean,
Yeah.
I know Pelia mentions that they lose contact with the ship and they think they're all dead. Earth does, but I don't know. It just
Yeah.
seems really, really far fetched to me a little bit.
So that part, like, so that distracted me, like going in and having this beautiful scene with Captain Pike and Kirk, because I think you extract that scene with just the two of them, it can be completely separate, right? You don't even
Yeah,
actually have to have the rest of this episode. It's just to talk about, hey, I made this decision. It killed like a whole bunch of people, and I'm like, I feel terrible like about it. And then you have, then you have Pike imparting like his thoughts. And his kind of mentorship of what it is like to be a captain and what it is like to be like a human being.
yeah.
Um, so I almost want to keep that in its own like little bubble right there, like separate, like from the rest of it.
Yeah, and we'll see how
Mm,
this plays out with the rest of the series, right? We'll see, how much more Kirk do we get? How does the series end? Does it end with Kirk taking over the Enterprise and Pike having his accident? Like how is this going to play out? Is the Kirk that we're going to get when the series is over, is that going to be more in line with the Kirk we know from TOS, or are they kind of taking a little bit of a different route with this one because the events in Strange New Worlds do tend to mess a little bit with some things that have already happened and
hmm.
will happen and or are supposed to happen in TOS and so forth. So it'll be interesting to see how this moves forward. I thought the episode itself was pretty well written. I thought that there were some things that, in general, uh, maybe weren't like we talked about, weren't maybe plausible or believable as much. But I think by making them humans, though, what it does is it crushes uh, Kirk, right? Because
Yeah.
he now has to live like what Pike said. He now has to live with the consequences of his decision, even though, again, Pike is trying to say, look, you made the right decision. Um, he's gonna have to live with the decision that he killed 7,000 human beings. That's not an insignificant number, and especially in a time period, right, where they've overcome things, and it's this great, this nice, great future compared to what it was in the past. So Kirk now has, I'm assuming he probably feels like he has blood on his hands, right?
Yeah.
And he now has to live with those choices. So,
So yeah. So how he like behaves right now, after this will be something to definitely see.
yes. Now, I hope we don't have any more Kirk episodes for a while. Again, it's not a slide against Paul Wesley. I just want them to focus on the characters, right? And there's still a lot. If you look at Strange New World season 3 so far, we have 6 episodes out of what I'm assuming is going to be 10 again. And we've had couple of Lon centric episodes, a couple of Spock and Chapel centric episodes, and I'm thinking to myself, we haven't had. Well, I guess there was a Doctor and the shuttle to Confori was Doctor Mbenga and Pike centric to a certain extent, but we haven't had an Uhura centric episode.
Mm,
We have not had really an Ortega centric episode. I know there was the one where she was disobeying orders and that was to me like a side arc.
mm.
So we have had a few episodes. We have had a few characters that haven't had a centric episode yet, like they've had in previous seasons, the first two
Yeah.
seasons. So I'm wondering if we're going to get some more of that. And oh, by the way, I'm assuming that the next episode is going to be lighthearted, right, or a little
Oh,
bit more
possibly.
whimsical
Yeah.
because I believe I got to hit my mic at least once per recording. Um, if we're following the trend, right, that's how it would kind of go.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. I think Ortega, we kind of left off on, I remember that episode with Ortega looking at the reflection and she's seeing like an image of the Gorn right there. So I
Yeah.
think there's more to unpack and explore with Ortega being there.
Yeah. And I'm looking at from actually it's from StarTrek.com. It has a list of the names of all the season 3 episodes, right? So we're at episode 6, which is the Sehlat who ate its tail. The next episode next week is going or this coming week is going to be What is Starfleet with a question mark? So I could see that going one either way, being either, dramatic or whimsical. Episode 8 is called Four and a Half Vulcans. I'm assuming that's going to be a lighthearted episode. That
Oh
just
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
the
think
name that just
that.
sounds,
Yeah.
very lighthearted. I don't know if that's going to involve bringing T'Pring back into the picture or not.
Hmm.
Maybe, maybe not. Episode 9 is Terrarium, and I'm thinking Terrarium is a something you build and house to have creatures.
Hmm.
I'm wondering if that's going to be another Gorn episode.
Could be.
Could
Yeah,
be. And
that
then the
could be.
final the final episode of season 3 is called New Life and New Civilizations. So that could be
Ah.
any number of things. But if we're going in, you know, every other like the trend has been, then episode 7 you'd think would be lighthearted, but then wouldn't episode 8 sounds like it'd be lighthearted, but maybe not. Who knows? I
Hmm.
guess we'll find out.
Yeah, we will. I'm sorry, I just thought about this, so I'm going back a little
Yeah,
bit.
please
Yeah.
do. Yeah, yeah.
Um, but I know we talk about the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies too, but there's a dynamic in those where there's the relationship of Pike and Kirk.
Hmm.
That's a big dynamic in the first
In the
one,
first
right?
one, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of
And
want
to
to,
the second one a
in the
little bit
second
too,
one,
yeah.
yeah. Uh, and so I was gonna think for us to go back and take a look at that, like the Pike and Kirk dynamic there in the JJ movies, and then the Pike Kirk dynamic here in Strange New Worlds, because the JJ ones, I really got it's been a while since I seen them. I felt was very, very, very much immediately like um a mentor to someone, because I think in the those movies, the Star Trek JJ one, it is Pike kind of saying, "Hey, Kirk, you've got a lot of potential. You know, rise up, stand on your feet. Let's realize your potential. Like look at all this good that you can do like as a person. Come on, join Starfleet because we need you." Right? So, Strange New Worlds, they kind of meet and Kirk is already like in Starfleet, like Pike's a captain. Not that Kirk is challenging Pike, but it's like they're much closer in Strange New Worlds in terms of their levels than I think in the JJ movies, and they're very, very spread apart. It is Pike kind of pulling Kirk up and saying, "Hey, I see this potential in you. I'm raising you up so that you can kind of realize that."
I think in the JJ movies, Pike is a little bit of a father figure, mentor,
Yeah, yeah,
because Kirk's father's gone, right? And Pike sees something in Kirk, especially because Pike served with his dad on the Farragut. I believe it was the Farragut, wasn't it? That they mentioned? Or no, maybe it wasn't
probably.
the
Yeah,
Farragut. Anyway, so he served with his dad and talked about how his dad was a captain of the ship for I don't know how many minutes or whatever it was.
yeah,
Um, and we know Kirk comes from strong bloodlines because Kirk's father was Thor. So because of that, we know that Kirk has some level of
hmm,
godlike powers. No, but yeah, you're right there. Because we in the JJ movies, we see Pike with a young Kirk before he even goes to the academy. Right now, we're seeing Pike with Kirk, and Kirk's already in Starfleet. He's already a lieutenant, and he's being promoted to first officer. So they meet at a later point in Kirk's life than they do in
yeah,
the JJ movies. So
yeah,
definitely a different dynamic for sure.
yeah. Different dynamic. And then in the season finale of season one, uh, when they're facing the Romulans, it is very much like this contrast, but almost like a challenge.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Kirk's coming in, and hey, I got a better way. I think we can do things kind of better than Pike's kind of take on how to handle the circumstance.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Agreed. Yeah. A very interesting episode we had here this week, Chris, with the Sehlat who ate its tail. Weird name for an episode, but like I said, once we hear Spock tell the story, the Vulcan story of that, then it makes sense and it's maybe not as strange. Uh, but I found myself very much liking the writing in the episode. I didn't like some of the things about the episode as a whole. But in general, I thought some of the writing, especially that moment at the end with Pike and Kirk, was really, really, really well written. So definitely want to, give another shout out to David Reed and Bill Wolkoff who wrote this episode, and Valerie Weiss who directed it, because I think the directing of this was fantastic. Some really amazing shots that she captured throughout the episode.
Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So, episode 6 of Strange New Worlds in the books, with next week's episode coming out. Like I said, an interesting name. What is Starfleet with a question mark? We don't have a lot of episodes that I can think of in Star Trek that are in the form of a question. Um, so this is going to be interesting to see if we follow the continual trend with Strange New Worlds of dramatic and lighthearted and dramatic and lighthearted. Because, like I said, the 4.5 Vulcan sounds very lighthearted, but maybe not. Maybe it'll be intense, some intense Vulcan. I don't know. I mean, maybe they're gonna spar it out because the Pon far's kicking in, and now they gotta have some. They have to have some type of like, fight scene between Spock and some other dude for to bring or for La'an, or who knows.
There you
I don't
go.
know.
Yeah, well, the 4.5 Vulcan sounds like, well, the half Vulcan, it's 4.5 because Spock's got to be the half, right?
Yeah,
Spock to be half Vulcan. But
yeah.
that does sound cute.
Yeah, it does. Is it this? I wonder. Is this isn't going to be like the Star Trek version of 2.5 Men? Is it? Are we
Maybe,
gonna
yeah,
have?
maybe,
Are we gonna have
maybe.
Charlie Sheen as a Vulcan in this?
But the episode "What is Starfleet?" question mark. Actually, that one sounds like a heavy episode to me.
It does, because to me it sounds like they're going to question the very core and fabric of what Starfleet stands for, and there's got to be some event maybe, and this is of course pure speculation, right?
Hmm.
Like there's got to be some event maybe that happens where it makes some of the main characters question what Starfleet's doing. Could we get a Section 31 appearance? Maybe. I mean, because what is Starfleet? Why would Starfleet do? I mean, that would be a perfect. Well, not a. It would be a great storyline, I think. If Starfleet's, so you have Section 31 part of Starfleet that's doing this shady stuff in the shadows, and they're like, well, what is Starfleet then? If they're doing this, what exactly is it? What does it stand for? I don't know. That could be kind of interesting. It's probably not going to be anything like that, but
It's amazing that you brought up Section 31 because in my mind, I was thinking about a episode that was "What is Section 31?" question mark. I could have that episode.
uh, well, wouldn't that be cool if it was a Section 31 episode? That'd be pretty neat.
Yeah, there has not been any in Strange New Worlds. No,
No, not
no.
no, no. There
Yeah,
has not been,
yeah,
and there wasn't any in TOS either, obviously, because it wasn't hadn't been made up. They didn't make it up. I mean, it was
yeah,
made up in Voyage. Or, I mean, DS9, right?
yeah.
So,
DS9. Yeah,
um, this reminded me really quickly as we wrap this episode up. That episode I was mentioning from Voyager, where they're in the void. And I don't, the name has escaped me. It's not called Darkness or whatever. I don't think it's called the Void, but where there's just complete blackness.
yeah.
And that I watched it the other day, and I'm like, this episode is really a little bit terrifying, because you have those those creatures that live in that part of space, and they're dark, and they live in the dark, and then they board the ship, and you have the other species that's dumping their waste in that
Oh,
area
yeah,
and killing
yeah.
them, right? So you have this whole conflict going on, right? And it's very dark. The creatures board the ship. The power is taken out. Uh, I went back and looked, Chris. We didn't have that on our recommendations for Halloween episodes. So if we do another Halloween special or a Halloween
Indeed.
series this year, we're gonna have to add that in as one of the episodes that we review. I think we should, because that's certainly would be on my list of like
Hmm.
creepy, spooky episodes to watch.
Yeah, that's a good one
I
to
mean,
do.
we're only a couple months out from Halloween. Fall's going to be here soon,
It's gonna
so
come up fast for sure.
it is. So we're going to start kind of like my kids working on their list for Santa Claus and what they want for Christmas. We're going to have to work on our Halloween list this year.
Yeah, we are. We are. Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. And there's some Strange New Worlds episodes to add on there too, I think.
The
Be
zombie
good.
episode,
The
definitely.
zombie. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So,
Ah,
anyways, but all right, my friend. Well, this was awesome as always. Enjoyed it. I love diving into this idea of Kirk and the character and the way in which they're developing this character here and there throughout the series, and the way Pock. Wow, God. I started to say Pike and Spock at the same time.
Spock.
It's not Pock.
It's a new character. Well, if they were
It's like
involved,
Tuvix.
yes. See? Exactly. Oh, we just need a transporter
Uh,
accident, and then it's gonna be Pock.
I blame my exhaustion on it, Chris.
Pock.
I'm gonna go with that. Yeah, Pock. It's the new. How would that work with Pike and Spock?
Or Spike. Spike.
Spike.
Spike. Pock.
Oh,
Pock Spike.
there's a Spike character in Back to the Future.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Um, there's a Spike character in Little Giants. There's a lot of Spike characters, but yeah, how would that work?
Pike.
I don't know. It'd be like a Tuvix scenario. Anyway, so what I meant to say was with Pike as well, and his role in Kirk's development, his role in Kirk's life, and the interplay of that, I think has been really, to quote Spock, fascinating so far, and I'm curious to see where it takes it.
Yeah, this will be a whole different take. Because if I think back to the toss episode of the menagerie, right?
Yeah, the
So this
Menagerie
is
Part One and Two with
yeah,
Pike. Yeah,
yeah. The menagerie is very much the relationship between Spock and Pike,
right.
because Spock is doing something for Pike. They've got this history, they've got this relationship. Spock feels obligated to help Pike through this situation. But here in Strange New Worlds, it's much more than it's. I mean, they're developing something with Kirk and Spike.
Ah, now you got it.
Kirk and Pike. Oh, Kirk and Pike.
Oh, that was epic. That was epic because I made up Pock and you made up Spike. So
Yeah,
maybe we need to have some T-shirts made, and
yeah.
we'll have Pike with Spock ears on and Spock with in a yellow uniform and no Vulcan ears, and we'll name them Pock and Spike.
Did
Pock and Spike sounds like two bad guys from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle cartoon series.
it does. I think we just
Yeah.
started something there.
I think
Yeah.
we did. I think we did. So, anyways, all right. Well, we hope all of you watching or listening all over the globe in the interwebs have enjoyed this episode, talking about Strange New Worlds season 3, episode 6, The Sehlat Who Ate Its Tail. We have very much been enjoying working our way through season 3 of Strange New Worlds, and we
Uh,
hope you have too. Be sure to go to Facebook, Instagram, Threads, YouTube if you're on the podcast platform side, listening to audio only, where you can find the video version of this episode and many others, along with all of our social platforms that you can check out and follow us there for more updates and information. I'm working hopefully on getting some really incredible guests, Chris, some really, really incredible guests, and hopefully we can make all that work out over the next few months. Some legendary folks, and we look forward to hopefully doing that. And then once Strange New Worlds is over, I think we got to cut back and finish up our or not mirror universe. We did that already. Our Section 31 Spotlight series, right?
yeah, we do because you and I eventually have to actually watch the Section 31 movie. Oh,
Yeah, I'm dreading that, Chris. I'm
yeah.
trying to stay open minded. I am. I promise. I'm dreading it because just there's just so much that makes me nervous. And so many letdowns. I think we're going to have once we discuss what expectations and the things we've learned by doing the Section 31 Spotlight series that we would either expect to see or hope to see or want to see or whatever you want to use to say for the movie. I think we're going to have some major letdowns. But I don't know. We'll find out, I guess. And then I was thinking too, Chris, at some point it would be cool. Maybe after our Section 31 series is over, we could do a spotlight series where it's like the random Redshirt or Zach and Chris's favorites, right? Where we take like 10 episodes, right? And it's 5 each, and we pick out 5 episodes that are our favorite. Or
Oh,
ones,
from all of the series?
yeah.
Yeah.
So for example, one of the episodes become one of my
Mm.
favorites over the last several years, and we have not done a deep dive of it on this podcast, is The
Mhm.
Inner Light from TNG.
Yeah.
That is a potently powerful, emotionally driven episode for me now that I have kids and a family and stuff that I didn't have when I would watch it in years past, like, way back when I was younger. So there's things like that. I mean, there's obviously some DS9 episodes, some Voyager stuff, Enterprise. There's a lot of those episodes. I mean, even probably even Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. It'd be hard to measure it down to 5 episodes, but there's certainly 5 episodes each. But there's certainly a few that I would love to deep dive with you on.
Wow. Yeah, that would be amazing to do. Yeah, happy to do like a spotlight on that. That'd be
Yeah,
very much
like our
fun.
our top picks or something. I don't know, but like
Hmm.
we do one episode. One episode is your favorite, then the next one's mine, then yours and mine, or something like that. Would be a lot of fun and alternate. It'd be kind of cool. But yeah, we got a lot of great stuff coming up on the show, everybody, as we work through the end of the year with celebrity guests and spotlight series episodes, and then what's going to, I'm sure, be both funny and disheartening. We do indeed talk about the Section 31 movie. Um, we definitely need to work in the Alien franchise into an episode with Alien Earth currently airing on FX and Hulu. And I've watched the first 2 episodes. I think we certainly should address the Alien franchise and talk about, where we think it's been great, where we think missteps have been, discuss the franchise as a whole, talk about how Alien Earth fits into that. I think that'll be an awesome discussion too.
Yeah, yeah. I'd look forward to that as well. I need to brush up on all of my alienness.
Yeah.
So
I've been
yeah,
actually watching a little bit of Alien lately because they've had it on a lot because of the new show
yeah,
coming out. So I've been reacquainting myself with the franchise. It's been a while since I've watched Alien stuff, but it'd be fun to do that, I think. It'd be really, really fun to dive into that franchise. It's a very large franchise at this point.
yeah. There's comic books. There's the role-playing game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
The
Absolutely.
movies, TV
Movies.
show. I mean, yeah, there's a lot going on with it. So, anyways, all right. Well, thank you everybody so much as always for watching and listening all over the globe and the interwebs. We very much appreciate it, and we look forward to bringing you more amazing content and celebrity guest interviews or discussions. I don't like the word interview, discussions. Very, very soon. So be sure to stay tuned for that, and be sure to stay tuned for our next Strange New Worlds review of the next episode coming out, which is What is Starfleet, episode number 7. So. Take care,
Awesome.
everybody, and we'll catch you next time right here on the Random Redshirt podcast.